Thank you very much, Caroline. I'm very grateful to be here this afternoon and to join in this discussion about publishing in the South. I will not talk much about journals because it's not an area I'm very familiar with, but from the little that investigation I did before coming here, I understand that journals in Africa, they don't sell much, and that, in fact, the linguistics one, in Ghana, I understand, is on open access and it's online, and they sell in bundles to libraries. That's about as much as I got about journals. But I'm going to talk about my experience in publishing academic books. Academic books are textbooks and reference material used in universities. Again, the content of the book is research findings, peer-reviewed. Most publishers in Ghana do not publish academic books simply because the internal market is small, distribution is difficult, and literacy level for such books is low. Hence, most academic publishing in Ghana is really custom publishing. That is, the owner or the author pays for the cost of publication and takes the books. For example, the University of Ghana or an author pays for the work to be published, and after publication, the books are given to the university or the author. The publisher divests himself or herself from any distribution responsibilities. This is because even where the book is a prescribed textbook, the students tend to make photocopies instead of buying the actual book. An example is a book on African studies which we published in 2014 for the University of Ghana. The editors assured us that it is a textbook to be used by all universities in Ghana. And a good grade in African studies is a prerequisite for a degree from the University of Ghana and other public universities in Ghana. Given the huge population of undergraduates in these institutions, one would expect to sell at least some 2,000 or 3,000 copies. We printed 2,000 copies, and to date, we have sold less than 1,000 copies. I must admit, though, that the Copyright Office in Ghana has had a reprographic rights organization formed known as CopyGhana, and photocopying machines, CDs, DVDs, and pen drives are taxed, and the money that's collected paid to the rights owners, that is Ghana Writers Association, Ghana Book Publishers Association, and Ghana Visual Arts Association to compensate them for their works photocopied. Efforts are being made to make students pay a levy for the photocopying they do on campuses, but this has not yet come to fruition. However, Sub-Saharan publishers have published several academic books for the University of Ghana and various departments of the university and individual members, and they pay us for taking the books off our hands. An example of such works is Reclaiming the Human Sciences Through African Perspectives, and there's a set out there, 2 big volumes, they're edited by Kofi Anyidoho and Helen Lauer. It consists of 2 volumes of about 2,000 pages of papers by some of the best brains on the continent. The volumes are described as, I quote, having been compiled as a possible antidote to our collective alienation. They are designed for random browsing, as if one were attending a fast-paced symposium of first-rate creative minds. The collection is intended to inspire, tease, taunt, provoke, and compel young academics whose listless miasma paralyzes them for lack of contact with role models, engage in the daily arm wrestling that is so essential for vibrant knowledge production. The university is having a hard time selling the books, but it is being marketed online by African Books Collective. one thing that has happened to these volumes is that, we were even thinking of how to disseminate the book in other countries because they are big and carrying them about is kind of difficult. But luckily, we had the Brazilian ambassador to Ghana who saw the books, and she was so thrilled with the contents that she took the books set to Brazil, and she's had them translated into Portuguese. And whereas we did the books in 2 volumes, the Portuguese have done them in 4 volumes, and the first volume is coming out this year, and the plan is to circulate them in Lusophone Africa. And I think this is something we very much appreciate on the part of the ambassador, the Brazilian ambassador to Ghana, Irene Baida Gala. This is really good because we think the books will be available at least in Lusophone Africa. A major undertaking, which Walter has mentioned earlier, by the University of Ghana within the last 2 years has been the publication of the University of Ghana Readers Series. Sub-Saharan Publishers is one of 4 Ghanaian publishers contracted to publish these readers. These readers provide a reflection on the impact of Legon academics on the development of thought and analysis of critical issues for Ghanaian and African societies. The series, reflecting the history and development of various disciplines at the university over several decades, as well as past research activities, is a collection of discipline-specific essays, a monumental project covering all the various departments at the university. The project was partly funded by Carnegie Corporation. At first, the university asked us to publish the books and sell them, but we refused to be responsible for their distribution because we realized that it would be virtually impossible to recoup our investment. There are about 45 to 50 titles, and Sub-Saharan publishers had done 15. Some of these titles are being distributed by African Books Collective on their various online platforms. The hard copies printed for the university are sitting in the warehouse on the campus. Aside from Library of Congress librarians and Hogarth representation who come periodically to buy new academic books, the readers are just sitting in the warehouse. They are not even on display in the university bookshop. The University of Ghana bookshop has been sold to a private company whose main interest is in the sale of stationery. None of our public universities has a bookshop that is anywhere near Blackwell's in Oxford. The bane of academic publishing in Ghana is the lack of proper distribution channels. At present, the Legon branch of EPP Book Services is the only bookshop that has a semblance of a bookshop where one might find books of all kinds, including a few academic ones. Good bookshops are very few indeed. Libraries, which should be the backbone of book publishing, are also cash-strapped. Public libraries have not purchased any books for years. All the same, we continue to publish academic books. We've done things like Chieftaincy in Ghana edited by Arinodo Tay, Sex and Gender in the Era of HIV/AIDS by Christine Opon. We co-published Merchants, Missionaries and Migrants with Kit Publishers of Netherlands during the 3rd centenary celebrations of the Ghana-Netherlands relations. The content was made up of contributions by scholars from Ghana, the Netherlands, Indonesia, Suriname, and the United States. A lot of these books were purchased by the Dutch Embassy in Accra and donated to university and public libraries. We have also published the Ankobra Gold Route Studies in the historical relationship between Western Ghana and the Dutch. It was edited by Michael Dortmund, Pelugi Vachechi, and James Ankwanda. The work was done by scholars from the Netherlands, Italy, Ghana, and funded by the Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands in Ghana, Ricerca, and A Cooperazione. Ghana Museums and Monuments Board, University of Pavia and University of Ghana, and the University of Groningen. Another example of co-edition is Sam Jonah and the Remaking of Ashanti by Ayiwa Afrifa Taylor of the London School of Economics, which deals with the story of Anglo Gold Ashanti, a gold mining company in Ghana. And to quote a blurb from the book, says, "Frenzies, deals, boardroom cliffhangers, political scandal, and private battles punctuates this unique account of the challenges of conducting first world business in the third world." We co-published this book with Pan Macmillan of South Africa. Sub-Saharan publishers have also done some books which have been of interest to Ghanaians and foreign visitors to the country. Some people describe them as academic, others call them scholarly, and some even say that they are neither scholarly nor academic. But they are they've been of much interest to people in Ghana and foreigners. These are the English translation of the Torkel Hansen trilogy on Ghana-Denmark history and the transatlantic slave trade, namely The Coast of Slaves, The Ships of Slaves, and The Islands of Slaves, translated by Karidako. We got the rights from Gyldendal of Copenhagen and had the books translated and published in English with support from the Danish Literature Center. The translator got her professorship at the University of Ghana with these works. Since then, we have had other material associated with the Ghana-Denmark history translated into English and published. And at this juncture, I would like to pay tribute to the late Selina Winsness, who felt that the prices of the Fontes community books were too high and African scholars could not afford them. Therefore, she gave us her last works to publish and sell at affordable prices in Ghana. These were the letters of Iset, the reports of Rask and Monrad, two Lutheran priests stationed at Christiansborg Castle at different times during the slave trade period, and Joseph Wolff, a Danish Jew in West Africa. Her translation of Rask and Monrad were supported by the Danish Literature Center. We have also co-published The Slave Ship Fredensburg by Leif Wallesen with Jan Randall Publishers of Jamaica and Askerhoog of Oslo. The Danish Embassy in Ghana bought several hundred copies for distribution to university and public libraries in Ghana. The last of the Danish Ghana history books was published. The last of the Danish Ghana history books we published is Closing the Books, Governor Edward Carstensen on Danish Guinea, 1842 to 50, translated by Tove Stofsveen. Carstensen is the guy who sold the Danish possessions in the Gold Coast, including Christiansborg Castle, to the British for just £10,000. Academics and publishing in Africa. I felt extremely honored when Professor Thomas Kasky of Cambridge University visited Ghana some 2 years ago and came to my office to discuss the possibility of co-publishing a book he was writing about Ghana, specifically about the Ashanti. Currently, we are working on a study of the Ga people called Kings, Priests, and Kinsmen, edited by Marion Kilson, an American scholar. Formerly, works like these would have been published in Europe or America, but now there is interest in having them published locally as well. Maybe African publishing has come of age for the North to take us seriously. Formerly, Ghanaian academics were having their works published abroad basically because of prestige. It is definitely more prestigious if published by Oxford or Cambridge or some British or American publisher than by some obscure publisher in Africa, even when the author is working in Africa. Also, a lot of the funds for research and publication used to come from outside Africa, hence the desire to publish outside. But now, it appears things are changing a bit. A lot of university departments have research grants and are now turning to local publishers to publish their works. Academics are also concerned for their works to be available in their native countries. And with the current improvement in the quality of African publishing, they are taking local publishers a bit more seriously. And this takes us to the digital age and books. The coming of the computer and internet has drastically revolutionized the book industry and book marketing in Africa. There used to be a lot of complaints about the quality of production of African published books in the 80s and 90s. Paper quality was poor, and so was the printing and binding. Henry Chakaba of East African Educational Publishers once made the following scathing remark about African published books, and I quote, "Books published in Africa do not travel beyond their national borders. A cursory look at most of these will reveal glaring spelling errors and bad grammar, even in the preliminary pages and blurb. The paper used, the design, layout, and illustrations are often substandard. Printing and binding may be awful, displaying bad imposition on the printer's part, so that the printed lines on the opposite sides of corresponding pages do not merge. These may be seen through because the lines were not properly broken up. And even inking and bad registration, so evident in African-produced books, turns the printed word into a smudge and interferes with reading," unquote. African Books Collective, formed by African publishers in the 1980s, specifically to market their books in Europe and America, had a hard time selling their products because they did not meet production standards of the North. Moreover, those were the heydays of structural adjustment programs when hard currency was hard to come by. African publishers had a hard time getting inputs for the production of their work. With the possible exception of South Africa, all African countries import paper, ink, plates, films, etc., and pay duties and VAT on them. And the printing presses used to be letter presses or archaic offset presses. All that is history now. With the coming of digital printing, all that ABC members have to do is to email the electronic files of their books to ABC, and through print on demand, ABC produces books according to Northern standards. This has saved publishers a lot of freight costs, and their books now have visibility in the North via the internet. Besides, practically every African publisher uses computers now, so all the issues that Chakaba raised some 20 years ago do not occur anymore. In Ghana, the government has lifted the duties on paper and other inputs for the production of school textbooks. In fact, currently, submissions for a tender for senior high school textbooks have been made, and the government has ordered that all the successful bids must be printed in Ghana. The Ministry of Education has released a list of approved printers with whom successful publishers must print their books. Maybe with time, the exemption might come to cover all other books, including academic books. Modern state-of-the-art presses have been set up, and there is even a print-on-demand facility in Accra. As a member of African Books Collective, all I need to do is send the electronic files of my books to ABC, and they put them on their various platforms. They sell e-books and print-on-demand books. The e-market has made the dissemination of academic books very easy and very cost-effective and accessible. I love having ABC out there handling my books on the internet for various practical reasons. Delivery is much faster than before, and the quality is right. Payment is by PayPal or credit card. Most African publishers do not have credit cards. I do not have one, so ABC is really a lifesaver for the members. There is an online company in Ghana that claims to be marketing academic books online. It is called Azalea Books. In fact, it has contacted the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences to market their publications online. It is also seeking some collaboration with ABC. For those of us, that is African publishers and authors, who do not understand how the e-market works, sometimes we are overwhelmed. I quite remember when the Reclaiming the Human Sciences through African perspectives were first put on the internet, the editors raised hell that they had seen the volumes at Barnes & Nobles and Amazon as so much, and that somebody was taking their copyright. There was so much brouhaha that I even asked ABC to remove them from the net so that we could have our peace of mind. I think many people do not understand how sales work on the net. If a book I have given to ABC, which ABC is selling for, say, £20 at Barnes & Nobles or Amazon, I do not know the terms between ABC and these distributors. Therefore, I cannot assume that ABC got £20 for the book. But that is what many African authors and editors tend to think. Mary J. can testify to all the fuss Helen Lauer raised when the volumes appeared on the net. All said and done, the digital age has revolutionized the publishing industry, even in Africa, for the better. At least most publishers have websites where their works could easily be accessed. Books still remain the most authentic and commendable means of knowledge transfer and culture exchange. The digital world is overwhelming, but it is somewhat premature to predict a paperless world. Now to indigenous languages and...
I don't know if we could, yeah, sort of coming to the end really, and a couple more minutes, is that okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
What I like to say about the indigenous languages is that they are, throughout Africa, we all use the colonial languages, and there has been a lot of talk about using indigenous languages. But the issue is that there are so many political and cultural, and even look among the various tribes themselves, there are so many myths that complicate the issues. And also, in the colonial era, because countries were created not according to any particular rule, but for the convenience of the colonizer, a whole group of people were divided. So you can find, say, if you take a tribe like the Ewe, you can find them in Benin. They are in the southern part of Benin, they are in southern part of Togo, and they are in southeastern part of Ghana. So how do you put one tribe or one group of people in 3 different countries and try to unify them is kind of difficult. Or those who developed, the missionaries especially, who developed the orthography for African languages, they took various languages and they developed the orthography for both the original language as well as the dialects. So you find people divided along those lines. For instance, in Ghana, Akan language is really spoken by the Asante, the Akwapim, the Kwo, the Akim, and the Brown people. But there are orthographies for Fanti, for Asante, and Akwapim. So which one do you use? So there are all kinds of complications involved in all this. But what I like to say is that once the right language policy is in place, it becomes practicable to link languages with economics. A direct result can be a whole range of industries and businesses. Example, expansion of the publishing industry in Africa. Economic and technological advancement paves the way for culture and knowledge production. there is a link between the mind, which invents the engine, and the imagination, which produces its songs and fables. African languages at present have little or no economic and technological engine to propel them into orbit. Thank you very much for your attention.
Oh, thank you so much. Again, some recurring themes here and some very new matters as well. Would anyone like to offer any questions? Yeah.
Hi, I was just going to reflect and agree with you when you said that you don't understand the e-book market. I'm sure you understand it much better than I do, and many of us in this room. But I was just going to pull that out as a possible discussion for the panel. How is electronic distribution working? What are the issues for authors? The UK Society of Authors, as you probably know, have raised the issue about royalties paid on e-books and so on to authors, perhaps in connection with the discussion about the electronic monograph and open access. I think that would be a really useful thing for this conference to talk about.
I haven't gotten the question.
There isn't really a question. So
it's a comment. Oh, okay.
But yeah, what's your observation about e-books? Is that really changing your practice at all? Or is it?
Well, for me, I think ABC being there and selling my books in the North is very convenient. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've had the organization has had its challenges, but personally, I believe in it. Mm-hmm. So I support whatever they are doing out there. And without them, I don't think my books would have gotten where they are now. Mm-hmm. So for me, I may not get thousands of dollars from ABC, but for me, ABC means a lot because the books are being exposed where they need to be exposed.
And what about the actual e-book? Is that an important format for you, or are you sticking very much to print? In your company?
Well, I stick to printing, but the e-books is being handled by ABC. I don't do any e-books myself.
Mm-hmm. We do print and e-books.
Right. So there's options for every book. I see. I understand it. Right. Okay. Good. Thank you. We have another question over here. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this insight. I am a philosopher. My audience, my target audience, is African peoples.
Yeah.
In all 6 of the 6 regions. But I do not want, as a Eurocentrically educated author, to return to the first 5 regions and speak in English, engage my readers in English. What language what languages of the continent should I choose, or should I seek to have my work translated into, if I have an eye towards a language that might be most common amongst various peoples on the continent, and also a language that might have been engaged in a philosophical way, such that it has vocabulary in store to translate philosophical arguments.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether I can recommend any particular language as against the others. But I think if you want to communicate with the people, then it's necessary, that you at least try most of the languages. If you want to communicate with them in their original languages, then you should do it in all the languages, as I should say. But I think in some cases you can get one language which is spoken. It has various dialects in various places. But if you take such a major language, then of course you reach a bigger audience, because they understand among themselves. They understand each other. As I was telling you, in Ghana, if you take the Akan language, that is the big language, but it has so many dialects. You know, there's Ashanti, there's Fanti, there's Ekwapim, and the rest, Kwo, and the rest. But when people from these various sections are talking, nobody translates for them. You know, if a Kwo man is speaking to an Ashanti man, he understands, and vice versa. So if you take one major language, or perhaps like in East Africa, Kiswahili, then you reach a bigger audience. Have I tried? Thank you.
I'm just fascinated by how many similarities there are between the African markets and the Indian markets. And something that I've kind of anecdotally heard in India is that rights to Indian authors being published locally, so say monographs being published by, say, Oxford University Press India, are not being sold at book fairs to international publishers elsewhere, which seems kind of counterproductive given that there are many institutions outside India that have South Asian studies departments, etc. And there's definitely interest in the library budgets as well for those kinds of books. So could you maybe say a little bit about kind of the selling of global rights of African authors outside outside Africa to foreign publishers?
Well, personally, I have, you know, sold rights outside, but they are not academic books. I've sold, you know, they are mostly children's books, which I've sold to European, American. I've even sold to Brazil, and you know, all kinds of places, and you know, Taiwan and places like that. But academic books, no. And I hope someday I'll be able to do it. The first one, I think, which we are trying, is this one with Brazil. Yeah.
Thank you. Could you possibly say why? Like, why is it that it hasn't happened yet? Is it because there's a lack of a market, or it just hasn't come fast?
Maybe I haven't tried hard enough. And also, I do co-publishing. At least I've done a couple with James Carey and some others. But I have a lot of the academic books I have done were not originated by me, with the possible exception of the university readers. So the university readers, they are quite new. So we hope somebody somewhere might want to take, the foreign rights. Yeah.
I had a question actually. I'm kind of interested when you were talking about your publications. It seemed that a fairly common business model is that you're actually being funded by donor agencies for. They receive a certain amount of donor funding. Those publications. I wondered if that is that the case? Is that necessary? Is that a precondition for these books to be published?
No. With let's say the Danish Ghana history books, for instance, I got interested in them because all along in Ghana we thought that the British were the colonial people who came to rule Ghana. Most people, at least people, when I was going to, I was at the university, I never heard of the Danes being there or the Dutch being there. Even though we do African studies, it's a requirement to get a degree from the University of Ghana. But the African studies we were taught was just general, studies, and okay, the slave trade was mentioned, and you never heard of it again. And most of the things we heard was with Britain. Like Ghana never saw anybody except Britain. See, so when I saw these books on the Danish history, I said, so even though Christiansborg Castle has been there for donkey's years, it never occurred to me that it was built by the Danes. So it was when I saw these books and I read the translation, then I felt that this is the kind of stuff that people in Ghana should know. They should know their history, So I did it. And actually, the Danish embassy in Accra was also thrilled that this had been done. So they were very happy to support it. Yeah.
But you don't need to have a donor.
No.
You can make these things. You can make the books commercially viable.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Right. Well, I don't see any other hands up, so I think we should now stop for a tea and coffee break and thank Akoss very much. Just before you go, we're reconvening here at 15:15, so we're like you back. You know, if you could come back fairly promptly for 15:15 for our final panel. Let's thank Akoss and Walter again.